Today I want to talk with you guys about 6 things I learned from my karate combat debut and how I can improve going forward into my future fight. Because yes, I got the win, and yes, I was happy with my performance, but we can always make improvements, and competing in the pit instead of in a cage or in a ring means there are adjustments to make. So, if you have not already caught my karate combat debut, you can take a look at it up here with my commentary included on the fight. But what I really wanted to focus on today is when I go back and I watch the fight myself, I recognize there are improvements that can be made. And I want to share with you guys things that I'm going to adjust and now that I recognize, which will help me in my future fights. And as we go through this list, make sure you guys use this episode as kind of a blueprint on how to look back on your own fight and make adjustments so that you're constantly improving. So the first thing that I want to talk about is attacking somebody against the wall of the pit is dangerous. When I first got into the pit, I had about 5 minutes to just feel it out and make assessments. And I kind of thought, like, my brother leaned against the pit and I went, okay, here's all the ways I can attack the guy. And if Bruno decides to lean against the pit, I will take advantage of that. But I did not realize that it was such a strong position for him to kick off. And a number of times in the fight, I went to engage to take advantage of him leaning back, and he threw the side kick up one time, which landed square in my chest decently hard. So in the future, I think I will need to come up with a very good solution, maybe chop the guy's calves, take him down, or somehow land a kick, but not move forward with the hands. I think the safest way to continue with the fight is if somebody decides to lean back, just step away and tell them to get back up and continue from there. The next thing that I learned, and this was all sort of trial experience for me because I did most of my training in boxing gloves, but now I can recognize that tight hands, tight defense still works. And I had many people in the comments leading up to this fight ask me how I was going to change my guard because of the smaller gloves. And I decided that I'm going to fight my normal fight. I'm going to keep my hands right here, but I have to recognize, yes, there are more openings because the glove is only 5.5 ounces instead of the normal 10. But I think in this fight, I demonstrated that the tight hands and the defense from here can work. Bruno was whipping in lots of shots, and I was able to keep my head protected for the most part with this defense. Now, maybe I'll make some adjustments, some small little changes, work a little bit more head movement, because that's something you should do with smaller gloves anyway. But I now know that the tight guard, even with the smaller gloves, still works. I also learned that the lack of ring ropes or cage makes it very difficult to pressure fight somebody and take advantage of them having nowhere to back up to. As we talked about in point number 1, when somebody falls backwards against the pit, they're still dangerous with that side kick. So I need to be able to work my pressure fighting and controlling the ring in a slightly different way than I used to. In the past, push somebody against the ring ropes, go to work, non-stop, keep them there. Now I need to be a little bit more aware that there's going to be alternatives that are better than that former strategy. Now, one of the most eye-opening things in this fight was the couple hip tosses that I received. I got knocked down and then I got hit on the ground. This made me realize that I need to, number 1, go back to doing lots of clench work, because the throws are allowed. I wasn't sure if they were because I didn't have 100% understanding of the rule set going into this fight. But now I know that clench work will be allowed. Yes, there'll be no knees, but I can still throw people to the ground. More importantly though, I need to go back to my jiu-jitsu classes where my coach was teaching me the hip throws. I don't need to necessarily learn those, but I need to learn the defense and make sure I understand the movements, because Bruno's hip throw was not exceptionally fast. There was a little pause where I should have adjusted, but I didn't because I did not recognize the technique the way I should have. So it's back to the clinch work for me for the next fights. I want to get back to catching kicks, dumping people, falling to the clinch, throwing them, and of course, understanding how to avoid getting thrown to the ground. The next point, and the next thing that I learned is, which I already really knew, but just reinforce, that boxing is king. If you have good hands, it can take you so far in any fight sport. In this fight, in my karate combat debut, I executed lots of fast hands, fast combos, and in my opinion, that is what won me the fight. Many people again were asking how I was going to change up my style, how I was going to adjust for the rule set, and if I was going to fall away from the boxing and start throwing more side kicks and be a little bit bouncier and turn my stance sideways. But I did none of that. I just went to the traditional fast, crisp hands, and they worked, and I was up against one of the most dangerous guys in karate combat. And the final thing that I took away from this fight, which I want to incorporate into my next ones, is the wall of the pit can actually be advantageous to spring off and throw attacks. I did zero training in the pit, zero training with that 45-degree wall angle. But once I got in, I realized if I'm backing up and I'm about to hit the edge of the pit, you can put your foot on that 45-degree angle, push off, and use it to increase your punching power. Or you could go into a flying kick. There's many ways that you can utilize that to increase the power of your shots. Kind of like when you throw a Superman punch, except now you have something to bounce off. And we occasionally see fighters who utilize the cage to basically side kick and push off into their techniques. You cannot do this with ring ropes. Obviously your leg will just pass right through. But with the cage it's possible, and with the pit, it is even more advantageous to gain that extra power and distance jumping forward. So I am 100% going to be creating a pit wall so I can practice these type of techniques and get more explosive, and more importantly, when I back up to the edge of the pit, not be in a bad position, but actually be in a position where I can take advantage of it and land big power shots. Now, of course, there's probably more things that I can take from my karate combat debut, more things I can learn, but right now, about 10 days out from my fight, these are the 6 things that I have in my mind which I need to work on going forward to make sure I improve and just continue to get better and better in karate combat. And like I said to you guys earlier in the episode, use this explanation here, this breakdown, is sort of a blueprint on things you can do to improve yourself. Doesn't matter if you're continually fighting in a ring, there are always things that you can make adjustments on to make sure you're improving. Try not to plateau as a fighter. You always want to be making little adjustments, especially when you change up your fighting arena. So that is all for me today, guys. I hope you found this episode enjoyable, maybe a little bit insightful for your future fights. If you did enjoy it, please give it a like. If you have not already, join the channel and get subscribed. As always, guys, train hard, and I will see you back here soon for another video.